I've been hauling freight for 18 years. Mostly produce, sometimes electronics, once a load of novelty garden gnomes that gave me the willies every time I checked my mirrors. You get used to the rhythm. The drone of the engine, the white noise of the radio, the long stretches of nothing between point A and point B. But there's a rule most long haulers learn quick: the hard way or the easy way. Some routes have a feel to them. A bad feel. And the worst feeling of all is the stretch of Route 17 that cuts through what they used to call the Halcyon Valley. It's a bypass they built in the 60s, a straight shot that was supposed to save 3 hours. It did, too, except nobody uses it anymore. The towns it was supposed to connect dried up and blew away. Now it's just 60 miles of cracked, sun-bleached asphalt, canyon walls on one side, a steep drop into pine forest on the other. No exits, no services, no radio, no cell towers. Just you, your rig, and a silence so deep it feels like pressure on your eardrums. My mistake was taking a last-minute load. Frozen turkeys. Deadline was tight, and the dispatcher, a guy named Ron with a permanent coffee stain on his shirt, said it was triple rate for on-time delivery. Just take 17, Hank, he said. It'll shave off the time. Be a milk run. I should have known. Milk run is dispatcher code for "you're gonna have a real bad night." I hit the halcyon turnoff just as the last of the sun was bleeding out behind the canyon rim. The world went from gold to purple to deep, velvety black in a matter of minutes. My high beams cut 2 cones of light into the darkness, but beyond them, it was absolute. The kind of dark that feels solid. I turned off the satellite radio. The silence was better than static. An hour in, I saw the first sign. Literally. A road sign, green and reflective. It read, "Welcome to Stoneglen, next service is 2 miles." The lettering was old-fashioned, the kind they don't make anymore. I'd run this route a handful of times over the years and never seen a sign for a town called Stoneglen. Must have missed it, I figured. My eyes were tired. 2 miles later, another sign, Stoneglen, POP 1247, exit now. An arrow pointed to a right-hand lane that peeled off the main highway. I slowed, peering down the off-ramp. It descended into a bowl of darkness, but at the very bottom, I could make out a cluster of lights. Not the bright white of modern streetlights, but the softer, yellower glow of old sodium vapor lamps. A few house lights, a brighter cluster that looked like a main street. My fuel gauge was hovering just above a quarter tank. Not critical, but lower than I liked on a road with 0 amenities. The idea of a real town, even a tiny one, was a sudden, powerful lure. A proper gas station, maybe a diner with bad coffee and a slice of pie. A human voice. I signaled, a pointless gesture in the empty dark, and took the exit. The ramp curved down sharply, the pines closing in like walls. The air grew colder, damp. I crossed a small, rattling bridge over a creek I couldn't see. And then I was in Stoneglen. It was a picture postcard of small-town America, frozen in about 1978. Wide main street with angled parking. A movie theater with a marquee that said closed. A diner called the Saddlebag, its windows dark. A hardware store, a 5-and-dime, a barbershop pole still turning slowly, lit from within. Every building was clean, painted, and perfectly maintained. Not a shingle out of place. And it was utterly, completely deserted. No cars. No people on the sidewalks. No cats in the alleys. The only movement was a few autumn leaves skittering across the pavement in the wind, which had picked up, sighing through the pines that crowded the edges of town. All the lights were on, street lights, porch lights, the neon open sign in the diner window, but there was no one to use them. A deep, instinctive unease settled in my gut. It was too clean. Too quiet. Towns this size, even asleep, have a presence. A dog barks. A TV flickers in a back room. Here, there was nothing. Just the wind and the hum of my idling engine. But there, at the far end of the main street, was a gas station. A classic two-bay job with a peaked roof and a glowing 76 ball on a tall pole. The lights were on under the canopy. I could see a figure moving inside the little attached convenience store. Relief, thin and nervous, trickled through me. At least there was someone. I pulled the rig up to the diesel pumps, a tight fit on the small lot, and killed the engine. The silence that followed was profound. I climbed down, my boots loud on the pavement. The air smelled of pine needles, cold metal, and a faint, sweet scent I couldn't place, like honeysuckle, but sharper. The bell on the door jingled with a clear, high note when I entered. The store was a time capsule. Wood-paneled walls, linoleum floors checked in red and white. A wall of coolers humming contentedly, stocked with glass bottles of soda I hadn't seen since childhood. Racks of chips, candy, motor oil. It was all pristine. The man behind the counter was in his 60s, with a kind, lined face and a head of thick silver hair. He wore a blue mechanic's jumpsuit with the name AL stitched over the breast pocket. He looked up from a paperback novel and smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Evening," he said, his voice a friendly rasp. "Don't get many travelers off the bypass this time of night. What can I do for you?" "Fill up the tanks," I said, leaning on the counter. "Diesel. And, is the diner open? Could use some coffee." AL's smile faltered, just for a second. "Ah, the saddlebag. Judy closes up early on weeknights. Nothing much stirring in Stoneglen after dark." He said it like it was a well-known, slightly embarrassing fact. "But I've got a fresh pot right here. On the house for a fellow night owl." He gestured to a drip coffee maker on a counter behind him, a half-full carafe of black liquid steaming away. "That'd be great," I said. The normality of it was soothing. A friendly gas station attendant, coffee, the hum of the coolers. Maybe I was just spooked by the emptiness. As he turned to get a cup, I asked, "Quiet town you got here?" "Oh, we like it that way," Al said, his back to me. "Peaceful. Everyone's just home with their families by now." He filled a styrofoam cup and handed it to me. "You headed far?" "Denver," I said, taking a sip. The coffee was perfect. Rich, strong, not bitter. "Long haul." "Denver," Al repeated, nodding slowly. He wasn't looking at me anymore, he was gazing out the big window at my truck. At the long, refrigerated trailer. "That's a heavy load for one man all that way." "It's what I do," I shrugged. "Must get lonely," he said, his eyes still on the trailer. There was a strange avarice in his gaze now, a hungry calculation that didn't match his kindly face. "Part of the job," I repeated, the phrase feeling hollow. He finally looked back at me, the smile back in place, but it didn't touch his eyes anymore. They were sharp, assessing. "Well, you enjoy that coffee. The pump's on. Take your time." I went back outside, the cup warm in my hand. The wind had died. The silence was now absolute, a heavy blanket over the town. As I unscrewed the fuel cap, I heard a new sound. A faint, rhythmic squeaking. Like a swing set. I looked across the street. There was a small town square, and in it, a playground. And on one of the swings, moving slowly back and forth, was a little girl. She was maybe 7 or 8, wearing a pale blue dress and white knee socks. Her head was down, long blonde hair covering her face. The swing squeaked with each gentle arc. My blood went cold. Where had she come from? The street had been empty 2 minutes ago. I looked back at the store. Al was watching me from the window, his expression unreadable. He gave a small, slow wave. I turned back to the girl. She had stopped swinging. She was just sitting there, her feet dragging in the dirt. And then, slowly, she raised her head. Her face was pale, her features delicate. And she was looking directly at me. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't frowning. Her expression was one of profound, empty sadness. Then, she raised her right hand. In it, she held the string to a balloon. But there was no balloon. Just a string, trailing up into the darkness above her, attached to nothing. She pointed at me with her other hand. Not a wave. A direct, accusatory point. Then she mouthed a single word. I couldn't hear it, but I could read her lips perfectly. Run. The pump clicked off. The tank was full. I slammed the cap back on, my heart hammering. I threw the half-full coffee cup into a trash can, not caring about the splash. I didn't look back at the store or the girl. I just climbed into my cab, fired up the engine, and pulled out of that lot as fast as the big rig would allow. I expected Al to come out. I expected something. But nothing happened. The town remained still and silent in my rearview mirror as I headed back the way I came, toward the on-ramp to Route 17. The ramp was where the second twist came. As I drove up it, back toward the main highway, my headlights swept across a large, official-looking sign that hadn't been there when I came down. It was wooden, rustic, like a Parks Department sign. It read, Halcyon Valley Historical Preserve. Town of Stoneglen, POP 0. Condemned, 1983. Danger, unstable ground. Below the words was a faded, black and white photograph of the very main street I'd just left. The buildings were crumbling, roofs caved in, windows shattered. A caption underneath said, Site of the Stoneglen Slide. 147 lives lost. I couldn't breathe. I'd just been there. The buildings weren't crumbled. They were perfect. The lights were on. A man had served me coffee. A little girl had. I stomped on the accelerator, the turbo whining as I merged back onto the empty, dark highway. The images swirled in my head, Al's hungry look at my trailer, the girl's empty balloon string, the sign saying the town had been wiped off the map over 40 years ago. Were they ghosts? Was I losing my mind from fatigue? Then I saw the headlights in my mirror. Not one pair. 3. They'd pulled onto the highway from the Stoneglen exit, falling into a loose line about a quarter-mile back. They weren't police cars. They were old models, a boxy sedan, a pickup, a station wagon. Their headlights had that same yellow, sodium vapor hue as the streetlights in the town. The chase was on, but it was nothing like the high-speed terror of a movie. This was worse. They didn't speed up. They didn't try to run me off the road. They just followed. A relentless, patient, ceremonial procession. They knew I had nowhere to go. They knew this road. They were hurting me. Panic seized me, cold and rational. This wasn't about robbery. That look Al gave my trailer. A heavy load for one man, they weren't interested in my wallet. A refrigerated trailer. A sealed container. Who would miss a trucker? Who would know where to look? I grabbed my CB radio, my hands shaking. Breaker 19, this is Rig 72 on Route 17, Halcyon Valley. I am being pursued by multiple vehicles. I need assistance. Anyone copy? Silence. Then, a burst of static. And a voice, old and raspy, familiar. It was Al. The CB shouldn't have worked in this dead zone. But it did. No need to rush, friend, the voice crackled, calm and friendly. The night's long. We're just seeing you safely through. I threw the mic down as if it had burned me. I tried my phone. No service. I was in a metal box, hurtling through a tunnel of darkness, with something that was not human following me. For the next 50 miles, it was a slow-motion nightmare. The 3 sets of headlights never changed distance. They were a constant, silent pressure. Every minute felt like an hour. I watched my fuel gauge slowly drop. I'd just filled up, but the gauge was reading half full already, and sinking. Were they draining it somehow? Was the truck itself turning against me? Then, a new horror. The temperature gauge for my refrigerated trailer began to climb. The unit was failing. My load of frozen turkeys was starting to thaw. An alarm began to beep, a soft, insistent sound that drilled into my brain. On the CB, a new voice, a woman's voice, sweet and maternal. Oh dear. It sounds like you're having some trouble with your rig. Wouldn't want all that food to go to waste. Such a heavy load for one man. The signal was perfect, as if she was in the passenger seat. I was sweating, cold and clammy. I had to get off this road. But there were no exits. Just canyon wall and drop off. The headlights behind me seemed to glow brighter. Finally, I saw a break in the guardrail up ahead. Not an exit, but a wide gravel turnout, a scenic overlook. A desperate plan formed. It was stupid, suicidal, but it was all I had. I waited until the last second, then slammed on the brakes and wrenched the wheel. The rig shuddered, the trailer skidding violently, threatening to jackknife. I fought the wheel, somehow keeping it upright, and careened into the gravel turnout, coming to a stop facing the guardrail and the sheer drop beyond. I looked in the mirror. The 3 vehicles had stopped on the highway. They didn't pull in. They just sat there, idling, their yellow lights pointed at me. Waiting. I jumped out of the cab. The trailer's refrigeration unit was sputtering, pouring out warm air. The alarm was louder out here. I ran to the back of the trailer, fumbling with the heavy latch. If they wanted the cargo, maybe I could give it to them. Scatter it. Buy time. I heaved the door open. It wasn't turkeys. Then, a new horror. The temperature gauge for my refrigerated trailer began to climb. The unit was failing. My load of frozen turkeys was starting to thaw. An alarm began to beep, a soft, insistent sound that drilled into my brain. On the CB, a new voice, a woman's voice, sweet and maternal. Oh dear. It sounds like you're having some trouble with your rig. Wouldn't want all that food to go to waste. Such a heavy load for one man. The signal was perfect, as if she was in the passenger seat. I was sweating, cold and clammy. I had to get off this road. But there were no exits. Just canyon wall and drop off. The headlights behind me seemed to glow brighter. Finally, I saw a break in the guardrail up ahead. Not an exit, but a wide gravel turnout, a scenic overlook. A desperate plan formed. It was stupid, suicidal, but it was all I had. I waited until the last second, then slammed on the brakes and wrenched the wheel. The rig shuddered, the trailer skidding violently, threatening to jackknife. I fought the wheel, somehow keeping it upright, and careened into the gravel turnout, coming to a stop facing the guardrail and the sheer drop beyond. I looked in the mirror. The 3 vehicles had stopped on the highway. They didn't pull in. They just sat there, idling, their yellow lights pointed at me. Waiting. I jumped out of the cab. The trailer's refrigeration unit was sputtering, pouring out warm air. The alarm was louder out here. I ran to the back of the trailer, fumbling with the heavy latch. If they wanted the cargo, maybe I could give it to them. Scatter it. Buy time. I heaved the door open. It wasn't turkeys. Al nodded. Contain the spillage. Load the cargo. We have to make the delivery before sunrise. They took another step forward. I had nowhere to go but over the cliff. Then, a sound. A real sound. The distant, beautiful growl of a diesel engine. Another big rig, coming from the opposite direction on Route 17. Its headlights appeared around a bend, blazing white in the darkness. The 3 figures from Stoneglen froze. They looked at the approaching lights, then at each other. A silent communication passed between them. The intrusion of a real witness, someone not part of their system, changed the calculus. The nurse snapped her clipboard shut. Abort. Clean profile. Without another word, they turned and walked swiftly back to their vehicles. The doors shut with quiet thumps. The engines, which had been silent, started without a sound. They executed perfect 3-point turns on the narrow highway and drove back the way they had come, their yellow lights fading into the dark. I collapsed against my trailer, gasping. The other truck blew past, the driver giving a sleepy toot of his horn at the rig pulled over at the overlook. He saw nothing. I looked inside the trailer at the dozens of sleeping people. What was I supposed to do? Go to the police? With this? With a story about a ghost town and a little girl with a balloon? They'd lock me up and lose the key. These people, whoever they were part of something I couldn't touch. With trembling hands, I closed and relocked the trailer door. I got back in my cab. The refrigeration alarm had stopped. The temperature was back to normal. The fuel gauge read full. I drove the rest of the way to Denver in a blind panic. I delivered the trailer to the anonymous warehouse on the manifest. Men in unmarked coveralls took it. They didn't speak to me. They just handed me an envelope full of cash. Triple rate. I quit long hauling the next week. I told Ron it was my back. He didn't believe me, but he didn't care. I still drive local now. No night runs. No lonely roads. So, this is my warning. It's not just about creepy gas stations. It's about the whole system. The empty towns on your GPS that shouldn't be there. The too convenient shortcuts. The loads that pay a little too well. They're out there, running their operations in the dead spaces where no one's watching. They look like normal things, a friendly attendant, a lonely child, but they're just covers. Filters for a reality you don't want to see. If you're driving late at night and you see a sign for a town you've never heard of, lights glowing in the valley below, you keep driving. Your empty tank is a better friend than a full cup of their coffee. Because they're not always hunting for meat. Sometimes, they're just looking for a reliable driver. And once you've taken their cargo, once you've seen their depot, you're part of the route. And they have a very, very long memory for spillage.